Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Amy off today, dealing with family matter. As promised by House Oversight Committee Chairman Jim Comer, a report has been released this morning, 36-page report from the House Oversight Committee that details transactions between foreign governments, foreign actors representing foreign governments, and the Biden Inc. operation. For instance, there was a series of transactions between 2015 and 2017 with a Romanian businessman who was convicted by Romanian prosecutors with a for a bribery-related offense. The committee's report, House Oversight Committee's report, notes the payments to companies tied to Hunter Biden began from the Romanian businessman shortly after then Vice President Joe Biden met with Romania's president at the White House in September of 2015 to discuss, quote-unquote, anti-corruption efforts and the rule of law. It sounds very similar to the Ukrainian protocol, doesn't it? There's also details in this report, which, again, just released, so I haven't had a chance to read all 36 pages, but some of the highlights. Details in there about payments from Chinese businessmen connected to the Chinese Communist Party to Hunter Biden, even though Joe Biden had said during the campaign he was unaware, didn't know anything about didn't think there was any dealings between Chinese nationals and his son, who we're just picking on, and who he's very proud of and who's done nothing wrong. Lot here, and there's some other developments as well that we want to get to with David Harsanyi, who joins us now. David Harsanyi is a senior editor at the Federalist and author of Eurotrash, Why America Must Reject the Failed Ideas, I should say, of a Dying Continent. David, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Always a pleasure. Thanks.
So I don't know, again, 36 pages just came out. I don't know if there's any quote-unquote smoking gun here, but there certainly is information that prompts more questions and that gives lie to some of the pronouncements Joe Biden has made from the campaign to present.
Yeah, on numerous occasions during the campaign, he said that he had no idea what his son was doing, and now we know, maybe not through this report, I haven't read it yet, but through other stories, that he knew, of course, what was going on with his son and what he was doing. He once flew him to China on Air Force Two, so it's clearly a lie, at the very least, worthy of an investigation, and since journalists won't do it, I guess Congress has to.
And this is the impetus for this, as Comer said on Bart Aroma's show on Sunday, is, hey, DOJ, don't go cutting a deal. He didn't say these exact words, but this is what I think he meant. Don't go cutting a deal with Hunter Biden for some low-level charges related to his background check for a gun purchase or related to income tax evasion. We have things that are much bigger forthcoming, and this is his first prove-up along those lines.
Yeah, I mean, and just take a step back. There are people on the record. I believe one of them went under oath and said that Joe Biden was a participant or was paid, I forgot what it was, 10% or whatever is the big guy, and he was a part of this operation. That is plenty of circumstantial evidence, at least, that this is worth investigating.
And possibly worth considering impeachment over? Question mark.
Depends. It depends what we find out, I guess. I mean, if Donald Trump can be impeached over a phone call that he made, I don't see why, if Joe Biden was part of this business and lied about it and used his position in government to enrich his family's business or help do that, I don't see why he wouldn't be impeached. But I basically think every president deserves to be impeached. So.
By the standard set under Trump, yeah, you would think. Exactly. Considering or consistent with using government to advance politics or personal enrichment, but politics in this case, and I guess to some extent, secondarily personal enrichment. Just the News, John Solomon's operation, reporting that now Secretary of State Blinken, who said Mike Morell's testimony that my conversation with him was the animating event that led him to organize the letter that said Hunter Biden's laptop had all the classic earmarks of a Russian disinformation campaign. That exonerates me. I had nothing to do with it. Well, Mike Morell said the opposite. And now we have information, emails that Just the News obtained, that Blinken sent the Russian disinformation claim to Mike Morell as the basis for him to, take action in organizing this letter that attempted to insulate Biden in the waning days of the 2020 campaign, as well as provide him with a talking point in the last debate of that campaign.
It is completely corrupt, right? I mean, to have agencies that are supposed to protect the United States, to have their leadership, the people that we're supposed to trust with all kinds of secrets, sort of coordinating attacks that help one person win the presidency over the other. It's just complete corruption. I don't know where it's going to lead or how involved everyone is in it, but from what we already know, it is just corrupt. It is. I'm not sure how Congress can deal with it, but I hope they keep digging into this. And again, journalists won't really do it, so someone has to.
Well, journalists like John Solomon will. Also on this topic,
right.
We have more. Now, we spent so much time in the FBI, let's not leave out the CIA. The House Judiciary and Intelligence Committees have obtained evidence that an active CIA employee may have recruited signatories for that letter. So there we have, at minimum, a Hatch Act violation, if it fleshes out.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why. I saw that story yesterday. The CIA employees for the CIA participated in rounding up these people. They debated language and this and that, but in the end, we all know what it was used for. It was used to help Joe Biden become president and undermine a story that would have hurt Joe Biden.
Now, on the other side, we have President Trump, who had just had a judgment entered against him for $5 million in that Jean Carroll sexual assault and defamation case, which he is going to appeal. He continues to protest it as nonsense. And at the same time that's occurring, you have fresh polling out that shows President Trump widening his lead over Ron DeSantis to, again, this is national, and we understand presidential races are state by state, but 61-19 is what Morning Consult has the spread between Trump and DeSantis. Do you think this Carroll judgment just is going to be sort of treated as just fruit of the poisonous tree, with everybody on the left trying to get Trump from every angle for any reason, and it's all of a similar kind, meaning it's not legitimate?
Hard to say. I think the polling matters, but I think it's way early to get too worried about that sort of thing. Obviously, Trump's name recognition is sky high, and he's, the former president and all that. I think this decision will be treated as just part of the Trump saga and the Trump story. Though, from my perspective, even if this woman is incredible or whatever, mounting an argument that says she's not my type is not exactly what we want from our presidential candidates. So, I find myself in the place I was, before, confused about what the American people want and what Republicans want. But I just think it's just too early, really. I think we have to wait until DeSantis is out there campaigning nationally to really get a feel for maybe where this is headed. But I certainly wouldn't be surprised if Trump wins, and I wouldn't even be surprised if he won the presidency again, considering what the job Joe Biden's doing.
Yeah, I sort of agree with you that actually the deposition he gave in the Carroll case may be more damaging to him than the judgment if it's used properly by his opponents. I wanted to get to something else, too, because you've been writing a lot about this, doing good work to address these wrap-up smears that are being lodged against Clarence Thomas, against Neil Gorsuch by the left, the effort to undermine the legitimacy of the Supreme Court, and particularly the conservative justices on the Supreme Court. And again, the backdrop of this is important. You have a half a dozen cases in important areas that the Supreme Court is set to adjudicate this term. And, I'm sure there's a global play here, but there probably is a short-term play here, too, when you've got the Harvard affirmative action case, when you've got the Biden student loan case, when you've got an immigration-related matter, all before the court.
Yeah, that's exactly right. One aspect of this is intimidation, trying to push the court to moderate or whatever. But in the other part, which I think is a huge story, is that I think there's a long-term effort, especially from progressives, but now, from Dick Durbin, from, Chris Murphy, from all these people, to smear members of the court, to delegitimize the court and thus its decisions. And only because, of course, that this iteration of the court or this Supreme Court that's sitting right now upholds the Constitution from time to time, and that is the one thing stopping the progressive project. So nationally. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's a huge story. I think it is a complete attack on, quote unquote, democracy and norms, the things supposedly these people are protecting. And it's unprecedented in modern politics. I can't remember anything like this. I mean, maybe it started with Obama when he called out the court on Citizens United during the State of the Union, and it's only gotten worse since then. The smears are ridiculous, and to even say there were ethical violations, I think, just pulls you into the trap. Not you, but people who use that kind of wording are pulled into the trap of delegitimizing the court, and it's really destructive.
Well, right, and so this is the cover story they're using for this ideological play that they're making. Oh, hey, this is just about ethics. We need to hold the court to the highest standard of ethics, and so on and so forth. So they're this gambit to introduce, an ethics code to bring the Supreme Court essentially under congressional oversight, which all 9 justices, rejected, which is telling. Getting those 9 justices agree on anything, so they see through it. But that's what the left is doing, right? Hey, we're just in the business of making sure that the Supreme Court abides the highest ethical standard, that the Supreme Court isn't compromised, even as the president is compromised by his son in this influence peddling operation. But we don't want the Supreme Court compromised, and so it's just ethics. And they think if they repeat ethics enough, just like if they repeat MAGA extremists enough, they can get away with it.
I mean, no offense to your listeners, but having an Illinois politician lecturing the Supreme Court on ethics is kind of funny. And honestly, most of the people who are lecturing them about whatever, sort of just ginned up, concocted ethics violations, have done far worse themselves. Now, I know no one cares about double standards anymore, but if the court acted like Congress, it would be far, far, far more corrupt, right? So, the whole thing is just complete nonsense. The problem is most people don't dive into these claims. They just, they're ready to believe that politicians and judges too are just kind of corrupt and partisan and all of that. And so you see the numbers of the Supreme Court, the people who trust the Supreme Court, just in polls diving, just cratering. And then, Dick Durbin gets up there and says, look, polls numbers show that trust is cratering. Yeah, because you're constantly smearing the court. That's why. This is what you want. And again, just so corrosive for the American system.
And again, David Harsanyi has written in painstaking detail about the allegations, the smears that were lodged against both Thomas and Gorsuch. I mean, you looked at this and you found there's no there, correct?
Well, especially listen, I think there is no real ethical violation. Justice Thomas has a rich friend. He broke no ethical. They've never come up with a case where they can point to that says, oh, look, Justice Thomas changed his judicial philosophy or his ideology to help a friend or to help anyone, because he hasn't. The Gorsuch smear in Politico is so preposterous because the woman who reported on that story doesn't know how to read a disclosure form or lied about a disclosure form. It's this convoluted thing about a property sold to a law firm. He didn't even sell it. He was just the part owner of it. It's literally listed on the first page of the disclosure form. It's just that she couldn't read the form or got confused or lied. And but that doesn't stop these senators from just moving forward with the smear.
David Harsanyi, senior editor at the Federalist, Federalist.com, and author of Eurotrash, Why America Must Reject the Failed Ideas of a Dying Continent. David, thanks as always. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
And he joined us on the Turnkey.pro answer line.
There's only one radio show in Chicago talking about today's biggest stories and telling you what they really mean. That show is this one, Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
The Daily Herald 2022 Best of the Fox winner for Best Financial Planner is Total Clarity Wealth Management. The 2022 Reader's Choice Award winner for Best Wealth Management Firm and Best Financial Planner is Total Clarity Wealth Management. Are you ready for a change? Choose Total Clarity.